something to tell you first. Thank you for ruining my life.
Legally, I'm not allowed to talk about it. But hey. Why not? Basically, at the end of the day, it was crazy.
I just remember everybody, people that were not involved in the scene at all, coming to set that afternoon to see.
Oh no.
And I just remember Karen Parsons, who played Hillary Banks, Karen, Alfonso, just like, and you know, we had our...
Tatyana Ali has just dropped a bombshell on Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and it changes everything. What once looked like a tight-knit family was held together by silence, tension, and power moves that nobody dared talk about, until now. From Will Smith's hidden trauma...
How come he don't want me, man?
...to his weird behavior behind the scenes.
All right, I open the door to Dwayne's dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having anal with Will.
Let me process that for a second.
There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up, killing him.
To Janet Hubert's forced exit.
And I went back to them in 2009 and I said, please, I need you to clear my name.
You talked to him directly?
I spoke to JL when my dad died.
This is a full breakdown of everything the cameras were never supposed to show. Before The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air ever aired, Will Smith wasn't planning on becoming a sitcom star. He had built his name in music as one half of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, a rap duo that had early success in the late 1980s. Their album, He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper, went triple platinum, and the pair won a Grammy for Best Rap Performance. Will was young, rich, and inexperienced with money. He spent heavily on cars, clothes, jewelry, and whatever else caught his eye. He didn't think about saving, and he definitely didn't think about taxes. By the time the IRS stepped in, he owed nearly $3 million in unpaid taxes. The IRS didn't waste time. They seized cars, furniture, and money. His lifestyle collapsed overnight. To make matters worse, his second album flopped and didn't generate enough income to recover.
Oh, they came to get their money, and I didn't have it, so they took everything else. Really?
At just 21 years old, Will Smith was famous and completely broke. Around this time, he met Benny Medina, a music executive who had an idea for a sitcom based on his own life, growing up in East LA and moving in with wealthy relatives in Beverly Hills. Quincy Jones got involved as a producer and helped fast-track the audition process. Will didn't even have much acting experience. He landed the role after a rushed audition at Quincy's house, which became the start of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will may have looked like he was on top of the world, but the truth was different. For the first 3 years of filming the show, 70% of his paychecks went straight to the IRS. He took the role out of desperation. This wasn't a typical acting gig for him. It was a way out of financial disaster. While millions of viewers saw a funny and confident young man playing a version of himself on screen, behind the scenes he was trying to recover from a personal and financial crisis. Tatyana Ali, who played Ashley Banks, was only 11 years old when she joined the cast. For her, the set was a place of both opportunity and intense pressure. She would later recall that even at her young age, she could sense the adult issues happening around her. The show may have looked like a happy family on screen, but people like Tatiana were observing things they didn't fully understand at the time. Looking back, she described the environment as supportive in some ways, but very serious in others, especially because so much was riding on the show's success. She didn't know Will's full situation back then, but the signs were there. He was driven, constantly working, and focused on doing whatever it took to make the show succeed. The Fresh Prince wasn't just a launchpad for Will Smith's acting career, it was a financial lifeline. And while the audience laughed at the jokes and loved the music and family themes, the truth was that Will Smith showed up to work every day knowing that most of his paycheck wouldn't even make it to his pocket. That reality shaped everything that followed. While The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air continued to rise in popularity, not everything behind the scenes was as smooth as it appeared on screen. One of the biggest turning points came at the end of Season 3, when the original Aunt Vivian, played by Janet Hubert, was suddenly replaced. Her departure sparked confusion among fans. Without warning or explanation, Hubert was gone, and Daphne Maxwell Reid stepped into the role. But behind that quiet transition was one of the most bitter and long-running feuds in television history between Janet Hubert and Will Smith.
And those things never happened. She never left the set. I never left the set. We got along great. I think he was young and he was inexperienced, and I think he simply had to win.
Janet Hubert was a classically trained actress who brought strength, elegance, and presence to the role of Aunt Viv. Her character was smart, outspoken, and deeply layered. But according to Hubert, her time on the show became unbearable due to tensions with Will. In multiple interviews, including a 1993 feature with Jet magazine, she accused Will Smith of using his influence to push her off the show. She claimed that he had the power to decide who stayed and who didn't, and that he made it clear she was no longer welcome. Hubert described the set environment as toxic. She said she was labeled as difficult because she spoke up about unfair treatment and resisted being pushed into the background. In her view, the show had become centered entirely around Will's stardom, leaving little room for the rest of the cast to shine. She believed Will didn't like sharing the spotlight and made it personal. Her contract negotiations also became a point of conflict. According to her, she was offered a renewal deal that significantly reduced her pay and restricted her from taking other work. Already pregnant at the time, Hubert said the offer felt like a setup, and she ultimately refused to sign it. That's when she was replaced.
And I went back to them in 2009 and I said, please, I need you to clear my name.
You talked to him directly?
I spoke to JL when my dad died and my brother died.
On the other side, Will Smith publicly claimed that Hubert was hard to work with and brought tension to the set. In a 1994 radio interview, he said she wanted the show to revolve around her character and made things difficult for everyone. He even went as far as referring to her as the Antichrist of their working relationship, a harsh label that deeply hurt Hubert and stayed with her for decades. The other cast members mostly stayed silent, though Alfonso Ribeiro, who played Carlton, backed Will's account and once described Hubert as crazy during a stand-up routine years later. The fallout nearly destroyed Hubert's career. For a long time, she couldn't find steady work in television, and the industry labeled her as problematic. The feud became a symbol of how black women in Hollywood often suffer when they stand up for themselves. Hubert maintained that she wasn't the problem, she was simply unwilling to shrink herself for the comfort of others. It wasn't until 2020 that the situation finally changed. During the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion special, Will and Janet sat down face-to-face and addressed their history for the first time in nearly 30 years. Will admitted he had been young, immature, and unaware of the harm he had caused. Hubert, in turn, shared the pain she had carried for years. The conversation was emotional, honest, and long overdue. It didn't erase what happened, but it brought some long-awaited closure to one of TV's most damaging fallouts. Meanwhile, Tatyana Ali, best known for playing the sweet and shy Ashley Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, had one of her most awkward moments on set during a very important part of her life, her first real kiss. What was supposed to be a sweet and private moment for her quickly became a moment she wished she could forget, all thanks to her co-stars and the pressure of being in front of the cameras. In a 2018 interview with Us Weekly, Tatyana Ali shared how this special moment went from bad to worse. Imagine this. You're about to have your first kiss, and instead of it being a quiet, personal moment, you're surrounded by huge cameras, and your co-stars are watching your every move.
I just remember everybody nobody, people that were not involved in the scene at all, coming to set that afternoon to see.
Oh no!
And I just remember Karen Parsons, who played Hillary Banks, Karen, Alfonso, just like, and you know, we had our...
Tatiana said that her co-stars, Alfonso Ribeiro and Karen Parsons, who played her on-screen siblings Carlton and Hillary Banks, decided to show up on set that day. Their presence made things even more nerve-wracking. They weren't supposed to be there, and Tatiana wasn't expecting them to watch such an intimate scene. Tatiana recalled how she felt during that moment, saying, "I just remember Alfonso and Corinne standing there with the cameras. And on sitcoms, the cameras are like huge cameras. I just remember them looking behind the camera. Who has their first kiss like that?" At that moment, Tatiana felt like she wanted to disappear. She even said, "I wanted to die."
I just remember them like looking behind the camera, like, and now it's like a fun, you know.
Sure, now it's funny.
I mean, who has a first kiss like that?
Right.
At the time, I wanted to kill him.
But over time, she was able to move on from that embarrassing experience. By 2013, Tatiana was more open about discussing relationships and her personal experiences. In an interview with HuffPost, she joked about how her views on things like relationships had changed over the years. She humorously mentioned that she considers certain things like one-night stands to be guilty pleasures. She even compared it to her love for bread pudding, joking, "Who doesn't love bread pudding?" Even though her first on-set kiss was a disaster, Tatyana Ali grew from the experience. Over the years, she has become more comfortable in her own skin and learned to laugh about the awkward moments in life. She's no longer the shy, young Ashley Banks we saw on TV, but a strong, confident woman who can look back on these memories with grace and humor. For a lot of the Fresh Prince cast, stepping away from the show meant stepping into new opportunities. But for Alfonso Ribeiro, it didn't go that way. After years of playing Carlton Banks, the lovable, dorky cousin with the sweater vests, and the iconic dance, he quickly realized that the role that made him famous was also the one keeping him stuck. Like Will Smith, Alfonso had become a household name. But unlike Will, he didn't get movie offers or big-name roles after the show ended. Hollywood didn't want to see him do anything new. They just wanted more Carlton. And that became a real problem. In fact, Alfonso has said straight up that playing Carlton basically ended his acting career. In a 2024 interview with Closer Weekly, he admitted, "Doing Carlton was the greatest and worst thing that ever happened to me. It was one of the greatest roles I was ever fortunate enough to play, but it was also the role that stopped me from acting again, because people couldn't see me as anything else." He didn't just say this quietly in interviews either. He brought that same energy to social media. When someone on X suggested that Tyler Perry should revamp his career, Alfonso fired back with one sentence that shook the timeline. "I don't need or ever want that man to do anything for me." It was cold, direct, and very unexpected. And of course, the internet went wild. People immediately started speculating. One fan posted, "Alfonso doesn't seem like an unreasonable or unnecessarily abrasive guy. There must be a reason for him to have had such a visceral response." Another person added, "Tyler didn't offer his stumpy, frumpy, uglass anything, so the comment was unnecessary. Tyler must have turned him down in more ways than one." Then came the comment that really got people talking. Sounds like Tyler tried to party with him back in the day, and Alfonso had to tell him no. Now, to be fair, no one knows what actually happened. Alfonso never gave more details, and Tyler Perry didn't respond publicly. But what's clear is that Ribeiro doesn't want anything to do with him. And that's saying a lot when you consider how many actors would jump at the chance to work with Tyler just to stay visible in the industry. After Fresh Prince, Alfonso quietly moved away from acting and leaned into hosting. He directed a few episodes of Young and Hungry and KC Undercover, but his main focus became family-friendly hosting gigs. These days, most people recognize him from America's Funniest Home Videos and Dancing with the Stars. Hosting gave him a clean break from Carlton and a career where people could finally see him as himself. Still, even with the success he's found, Alfonso hasn't ruled out acting completely. In that same 2024 interview, he said, "I'm enjoying being a host and I'm very happy with it. But yes, I would go back to acting if it was exactly the right thing." But it's clear that exactly the right thing does not include Tyler Perry. Whether it's a personal issue, professional disagreement, or something deeper, Alfonso's not interested. And judging by the reaction online, a lot of people think there's more to that story than he's letting on. Alfonso Ribeiro wasn't the only one carrying the weight of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air long after the cameras stopped rolling. While Alfonso was battling to break free from the Carlton image, Will Smith was fighting something else entirely: his past. And unlike Alfonso, Will wasn't trying to escape a role. He was trying to escape memories that followed him everywhere he went.
Great birthdays without him. He never even sent me a damn card. To hell with him!
The show had always played up the contrast between West Philly and Bel-Air. But for Will, that storyline wasn't just part of the script. It was real. He grew up in a house where violence wasn't a punchline. Over the years, Will has opened up in interviews about the abuse he witnessed at home, especially the night he saw his father hit his mother so hard she collapsed. He was just 9 years old. That moment stayed with him for decades, and whether he realized it at the time or not, it shaped how he approached everything, from relationships to fame, and even his obsession with being seen as perfect. During the height of The Fresh Prince, Will buried himself in work. Every opportunity, every role, every public appearance was part of a bigger goal: prove he could rise above where he came from. To the outside world, he was winning. He had a hit show, a growing film career, and a reputation for being one of the most likable stars in the business. But behind that smile was someone who never really stopped running from what he saw as a child. That's part of what made his performance in the famous "How Come He Don't Want Me" scene so powerful. It wasn't acting, it was release.
How come he don't want me, man?
In that moment, years of pain and confusion came out, and it happened on national television. That scene hit differently because it was real. And for Will, it was one of the few times he allowed himself to be seen without the armor. But even with all that vulnerability, Will still had his critics. Some of his co-stars felt he had become too big, too fast. They said he acted like the set revolved around him. And in some ways, it did. He was the face of the show, and his stardom exploded while others faded into the background. As his film career took off, the cast noticed a shift. He wasn't just the funny kid from Philly anymore. He was a brand, a machine. And not everyone was okay with that. Still, none of that compares to the whispers that would follow Will years later. Because just when it seemed like he had built the perfect Hollywood career, box office hits, awards, a seemingly unshakable marriage, people started asking questions. They looked closer, and what they found brought the past rushing back. Some of those same perfect image walls started to crack. The stories about the real Will, the one behind the scenes, started coming out. And unlike the scripted moments from The Fresh Prince, these stories didn't always have a happy ending. For years, Will Smith played the game perfectly. He gave Hollywood exactly what it wanted: a charming, talented, bankable star who could play the funny guy, the action hero, the family man. But the more his public image grew, the harder it became to hide what was happening behind closed doors. And when the internet started digging into his past connections, especially his longtime association with Sean "Diddy" Combs, things got uncomfortable fast. The rumors started quietly. A few photos here and there. Will and Diddy laughing it up at events, attending parties, standing a little too close at after parties. But it wasn't until the Diddy scandal exploded that people really started asking questions about Will's role in all of it. One name that fueled the conversation was Keefe D, the same man tied to the Tupac Shakur murder case. In an interview that resurfaced in 2003, Keith claimed he had seen Will and Jada at one of Diddy's infamous freak-off parties. That alone was enough to light social media on fire. These weren't your average Hollywood get-togethers. According to multiple people, Diddy's parties were filled with drugs, sexual acts out in the open, and hidden cameras watching from every corner. Former bodyguards claimed footage from these parties was used as leverage to keep people silent, to control careers, to trap anyone who got too close. And with Will's name suddenly tied to those allegations, the questions started rolling in. Why was he there? Was he just a guest or something more? Then there were the other voices. For instance, we have Jaguar Wright, who claimed that Will and Jada were hosting gay parties for young celebs.
Hey, young man, come on over. My husband just wants to touch you for a little while on camera. I promise you, you won't feel a thing. Sniff this.
Then there is Bilal, Will Smith's longtime personal assistant of over 40 years, who came forward with a jaw-dropping accusation. In an interview with Tasha K, he claimed he personally walked in on Will and Dwayne Martin having a S-encounter inside Dwayne's dressing room.
All right, I open the door to Dwayne's dressing room, and that's when I see Dwayne and having a Will.
Let me process that for a second.
There was a couch, and Will was bent over on the couch, and Dwayne was standing up, killing him.
This wasn't internet speculation. It wasn't fan fiction. It was a first-hand claim from someone who worked directly with Will for decades, and it blew up fast. Jada Pinkett Smith quickly went on The Breakfast Club and called the allegations ridiculous and malicious. She promised legal action, claimed it was an extortion attempt.
Say strong allegations. There's like so many rumors. Anything you want to say, we sue it. I know that's right.
But here's the strange part. No lawsuit was ever filed. No cease and desist. No court documents. Just words. For a couple who has threatened lawsuits in the past and followed through, this sudden silence raised even more suspicion. Meanwhile, Keith D., the former South Central Crip involved in Tupac's murder case, said he saw Will and Jada at a Diddy-hosted Illuminati-style party years ago. According to him, the atmosphere was bizarre, filled with strange characters, S-undertones, and a vibe that didn't feel right.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of weird shit. That whole fucking, yeah, that shit weird, dude. Yeah, bunch of, it ain't right. You know.
Another insider, Gene Deal, claimed Diddy's homes were filled with hidden cameras, not just for surveillance, but allegedly for blackmail. He said everything was being recorded, who entered, what they did, who they did it with, and he confirmed that federal agents have since confiscated this footage as part of the ongoing investigation into Diddy's alleged operation. That's where things get terrifying for Will Smith. According to whispers online, and a now-deleted clip that briefly circulated, Will Smith allegedly appears on one of the recovered tapes. The video was quickly scrubbed from the internet, but not before users claimed it showed him participating in freak-off activity with Diddy. Whether that tape is real or fake, we don't know. But the fact that it was immediately removed and no one from the Smith camp issued a legal threat has fans raising eyebrows. On top of that, Orlando Brown has repeatedly accused both Will and Diddy of grooming him as a teen.
I mean, took my house, took all my shit, started my family members and all kind of bro. You a up person, man. You a person. Yes, Will Smith is Michael Jackson,
He's erratic, sure, but he's also not alone. In December 24, Will Smith finally broke his silence about all these allegations. Standing on stage in San Diego, he looked visibly agitated, pacing back and forth as the crowd watched in disbelief. He was done with the rumors, done with the memes. "I haven't addressed any of this publicly. Y'all can stop all of that BS," he barked. "I ain't been nowhere near no damn freak off. I ain't been nowhere near that, man. Ain't did none of that stupid-ish." The crowd was stunned. Then he added, almost laughing,
I don't even like baby oil.
I haven't publicly. I just said y'all the first time.
He was referring to the thousands of bottles of lubricant reportedly found during raids on Diddy's properties, linked to the alleged parties, now central to the case. It was meant to be a joke, but it only made things worse. The clip spread like wildfire. People weren't focused on the denial. They were focused on why Will had to say anything at all, why his name was even in this conversation. By now, the idea of Will Smith the brand was starting to fall apart, and all those carefully managed images from his Fresh Prince days, they were beginning to look more like a performance than a reflection of who he really was. So, after all these years of reruns, nostalgia, and that catchy theme song, it turns out The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was never just a feel-good sitcom. It was a pressure cooker, filled with fame, secrets, personal pain, and power plays. Will Smith became the face of a generation, but behind that smile was a man running from his past, managing a public image that's now crumbling in real time. And while most people laughed at Carlton's dance or cried during that one powerful scene, the cast, especially Janet, Alfonso, and Tatiana, were quietly living through something much more serious. Careers were damaged, relationships were destroyed, and some of those wounds are only now starting to heal. The truth is finally coming out, and now that the actors have spoken, it confirms what many already feared. The show that felt like family may have been built on silence, sacrifice, and pain. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.